Thanks for having us, Tim, and it's great to be with everyone today. I look forward to sharing some exciting news we have as the Sayona story develops this year. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. So Sayona is on track to become North America's next lithium producer. We're on track to commence production of spodumene concentrate at our NAL facility in Quebec by March of 2023. Ultimately, our ambition is to target a nameplate capacity of that facility of 226,000 tonnes of spodumene concentrate. So between first production and hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be ramping up towards a stable operating level with ultimate ambition of hitting that nameplate capacity. Next slide, please. So Sayona is a $2.3 billion emerging producer. We were added to the ASX 200 index last September. We have about $100 million of cash on the balance sheet at the end of December, which should carry us through first production at NAL. And more importantly, we have no debt. Next slide, please. Next slide. So ESG is very important to us at Sayona, not only from the benefits of being in Quebec with clean and cheap hydroelectricity to power our operations, but also our commitment to building strong relationships with our communities in which we operate and our First Nations. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the benefits of Quebec, there's many elements to Quebec, which is why we think it's a fantastic jurisdiction in which to operate. Low cost due to its proximity to the US, strong ESG benefits with the cheap and green hydropower. It's a mining province and strong support from government in terms of production of battery materials. So when you add all those elements together, we think that's a winning combination. Next slide, please. So Sayona has the largest hard rock lithium resource base in North America with a 34% share of known hard rock lithium resources. We have a strategy to build two integrated value chains from mine through to chemical production in both the north and the south of Quebec. If we drill in on the southern hub, the Abitibi hub, which is cornerstoned by the North American lithium brownfield mine and concentrator and a partially built carbonate plant. We're looking to get that into production next month and ramp up to a targeted nameplate capacity with the ultimate ambition of going downstream to produce lithium carbonate by 2026 of 23,000 tonnes per annum. In the north, we have the northern hub, which is anchored by the exciting Mobilan project. We've completed over 33,000 metres of diamond core drilling to the end of October last year. The drill results from that drilling program are forthcoming over the coming months. And we have ultimately an ambition eventually by 2030 of producing 100,000 tonnes of lithium hydroxide from the northern hub. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So NAL, part of our strategy is around size and speed. And the speed element is with the investment in brownfield assets to get tonnes to market. And that's exactly what NAL is. In under 2 years with our partners at Piedmont Lithium, for a cost of under $200 million, we will hopefully be getting that plant into production by March this year. We've commenced successful commissioning trials of the crushing circuit last month. The rail contract to move the spodumene concentrate to port has been signed. The mining operators, the contractors are on site and in pit. They started last October. And there is sufficient material on the ROM in excess of 150,000 tonnes to feed the crushing circuit for over 30 days at full capacity. And that's in situ now. So ultimately what all of this means is we're expecting for the first half of FY24 spodumene concentrate production of somewhere between 85,000 tonnes and 115,000 tonnes for that 6-month period. Next slide, please. So NAL will ramp from first production over the coming months to a stable operating level by the end of this year. What this means is we're expecting 4 shipments in H1 of FY24, split evenly across Q1 and Q2 of FY24. We're anticipating the first shipment to occur in July of this year, which more importantly means first revenue to the joint venture in July. The joint venture has multiple paths to market. There is an existing offtake agreement with Piedmont Lithium for 113,000 tonnes of spodumene concentrate, or 50%, whichever is greater, and that commences on the 1st of July 2023. The other part of the production will be sold to other customers, and we have additional offtake agreements pending. There'll be news flow on that as we move forward over the coming months. And what that means is the other customers' share of spodumene concentrate will go at a much higher price than the existing offtake, which gives NAL and Sayona a direct exposure to prevailing robust spodumene pricing. So the goal for NAL is to produce maximum tonnes at close to that targeted nameplate capacity of 226 to maximise the share of production, which will be exposed to those prevailing higher spodumene prices. Next slide, please. Next slide. So part of the Sayona theme is around size, and we're looking to grow the resource base at both our Abitibi hub and our Northern hub. At Abitibi, it relates to the acquisition of claims from Jordan Resources, which we announced last year. We acquired outright 20 claims with the right to earn into an additional 28 claims to earn a 51% in the Valley joint venture. And ultimately what that's about is trying to delineate a resource at the Valley joint venture with the ultimate goal to provide ore potentially from the Valley joint venture properties to feed the NAL concentrator. Next slide, please. So indicative timelines for the Abitibi hub. On track for first production of spodumene concentrate from NAL in March of this year, with the ultimate ambition of producing lithium carbonate at NAL, supplied by the the spodumene concentrate produced by NAL by 2026. Next slide, please. In the Northern hub, we have the exciting Mobilan project. As I mentioned, more than 33,000 metres of diamond core drilling completed by Sayona as at the end of October last year. We have drill results for that pending. And ultimately, we have an ambition in the north to grow our resource base to in excess of 60 million tonnes. And that's to provide a base, to provide feedstock for our ultimate ambition of producing 100,000 tonnes of lithium hydroxide by 2030. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So looking at the indicative timeline for the Northern hub, focusing in on the concentrate production from the Northern hub, we're sort of targeting indicatively of H2 FY27 to be producing spodumene concentrate from that project. And then moving forward, we have a hydroxide production coming in by 2030. Next slide, please. Next slide. So what does this all mean? So Sayona is all about size and speed to power the energy transition in North America. We have over 200,000 hectares of claims within Quebec, which means we have a resource of 34% of the known hard rock lithium resource in North America. It's a JORC resource of 119 million tonnes in the Abitibi hub alone. And this translates into first production this year. We're expecting between 85,000 tonnes and 115,000 tonnes from NAL in the first half of fiscal 24, and hopefully ramping up towards that targeted nameplate of 226,000 tonnes of spodumene concentrate per year. Next slide, please. And finally, some exciting news flow to come from Sayona this year. We have the NAL restart to look forward to. Offtake agreements, there'll be news flow around that over the coming months. First spodumene shipment in July. We have feasibility studies for the carbonate, the partially completed carbonate plant at NAL throughout the year. And then we look forward to the drill results from the diamond core drilling that has been completed at Mobilan. And also we have feasibility studies into a mine and concentrator in Mobilan that will come out in May and October of this year. So lots of news flow to look forward to. Really look forward to watching the Sayona story evolve as we progress through 2023. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Dougal. Appreciate you had a lot to get through. We have got many questions coming through here, so I might repeat myself, apologise, but I think people would probably like to elaborate on a few more points that you touched on. Let's start. Can you just elaborate more on what the plans are for the Northern Lithium Hub?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, we've completed a fairly extensive diamond core drilling program, 33,000 metres of drilling to the end of October. We currently have a foreign resource estimate of 12 million tonnes at 1.4%. We're looking to upgrade that resource. We have a ambition to grow that in excess of 60 million tonnes. So we'll have news flow about the drilling results coming out over the coming months. And I guess that will ultimately feed into our feasibility study that we look forward to receiving in May, which will provide us the first insight into the economics and the feasibility towards producing spodumene concentrate from the Northern Hub.
And the PFS, I believe, for NAL is due out in April. Is that correct? And what's the significance of this?
Yeah, so that's right. The PFS for the partially constructed lithium carbonate plant. So if we can get this plant operating by 2026, NAL would be the first and only integrated producer from spodumene to chemical in North America. So we're very excited about the results that are pending from this feasibility study. And ultimately, Sayona's ambition in Quebec is to go downstream in both hubs. So depending on the outcomes of this feasibility study in April, this may be the first point at which we look forward to the possibility or the timeline as to when we could go downstream from NAL.
And there's questions here around the kind of projected production from NAL for 23 and 24. Some research suggested 78,000 tonnes in the first year. Can you talk through those numbers?
Yeah, sure. So we're anticipating between 85,000 tonnes and 115,000 for H1 of FY24, so July to December of 2023. And we're looking to, that'll obviously include part of the ramp period before we level off at a stable operating level. So we're looking forward to maximising tonnes from NAL for the benefit of the joint venture parties.
And those joint venture partner in Piedmont have an offtake agreement for 50% of that production. Will that number be enforced in the first year? What percentage of production will be staying with Sayona to ensure the company's well funded?
Yeah, that's right. So yes, the Piedmont offtake agreement commences on the 1st of July. Each shipment starting from July will be shared between Piedmont and other customers. So the agreement provides Piedmont with a minimum of 113,000 tonnes per calendar year. Once we get into a post-ramp period, so next year, that'll be allocated between Piedmont and other customers on a pro rata share. So the key message is that every shipment will be shared between Piedmont and other customers, ultimately to maximise revenue for the joint venture and its joint venture shareholders.
And Moblanc, can you give us an update on a potential resource size and upgrade there and when that could be released?
Yeah, so we completed the drilling late last year, extensive drill program. Results on that are pending. We have an ambition to grow the resource from the foreign estimate of 12 billion tonnes to in excess of 60 million tonnes. So we'll need to wait and see what the results come back with.
And I think in the AGM here, those drill results were kind of expected to be provided by December and January. They're obviously late. Will they be much later?
They should be coming over the next couple of months. The delay is being caused by some additional work to really get a good understanding of the potential resource that may be there to characterise it, as well as the non-lithium elements there. So the team is working really hard to get a good understanding of the resource. So when we come to the market, we'll be able to provide good characterisation of the resource that's there.
A further question here on ESG, which is a big factor, obviously, in investing currently. What are the ESG benefits for Sayona in Quebec?
Yeah, so Quebec is a fantastic jurisdiction from an ESG perspective. You've got proximity to North America, which cuts out freight costs and emissions from freight versus other jurisdictions. And the big selling point for Quebec from an ESG perspective is hydro. So a significant portion of NAL's power will be run by hydro. We anticipate that the potential concentrator and chemical facility in the Northern Hub will also be powered significantly by hydro. So that's a really strong tick of approval from an ESG perspective, and which is why we are so bullish on Quebec and we're so committed to building out our battery metal value chains within the province.
We always like to finish on the milestones for 2023. Can you give us your colour on that?
Sure, lots of news flow coming this year, focused around NAL. We have the restart, offtake agreements. We have first revenue by July, the feasibility study for the NAL carbonate, which will be due in April. And then we have the feasibility study for Mobilan, which is due in May and October. So lots of news flow running in parallel for both the B2B hub and the Northern hub, and both on the spodumene concentrate and the chemical side. So lots to watch.